Greetings to all. Hope you are doing fine in this time of crisis. I'm Dr. Prakriti James, Assistant Professor, Department of Education in Pandit Sundarlal Sharma Open University, Chhattisgarh, Bilaspur. This video of mine is based on the topic Research Ethics, Academic Honesty and Integrity, Content and its Implications, and Converting Thesis into Authentic Publication Ready Material. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So come, let's begin the topic with the help of this PowerPoint.
In this video, we are going to discuss about the research ethics, academic honesty and integrity, content and its implications, and converting thesis into authentic publication ready material. After listening to this video, you would be able to create better research ethics while performing your research work, and also would be able to know how to convert your research work into authentic publication material. So let's move on.
We all are teachers, and as we all know that teaching is not a profession, it's a service. As a teacher, not only teaching is our duty, but along with teaching, we are also supposed to do research work also. If we say that I am a good teacher, then it is also important for us to keep ourselves self-indulged into 50% teaching and 50% research work. So, when we get into research process, it becomes necessary that we follow certain rules, principles, and ethics which are related to research works. So, now, what do we mean by research ethics? Research ethics, they provide guidelines for the responsible conduct of research. Research ethics govern the standards of conduct for scientific researches. It is important to adhere to ethical principles in order to protect the dignity, rights, and welfare of research participants. In addition, it educates and monitors scientists which are conducting research to ensure a high ethical standard.
Let us have a look upon some principles which are related to research ethics. Research ethics are based on three fundamental principles. First is, people should be treated as autonomous. Now, what does this mean? In simple words, the term autonomous means that a person can make his or her decisions about what to do and what to agree to. We as a researcher must respect that individuals should make their own informed decisions about whether to participate in research or not to participate. Whatever be their decision, we must respect it. Second basic principle is people with diminished autonomy should be protected. What is diminished autonomy? What does it mean? In Hindi, it can be called as kam swayatata, or a person of diminished autonomy by contract. It is in some respect controlled by others or incapable of acting on the basis of his or her desires and plans. For example, let us say prisoners and mentally retarded individuals often have diminished autonomy because they want to perform, but due to some control, they are not allowed to do so. That's why it's our duty as a researcher to protect people with diminished autonomy. Let's now come to the third basic principle, which is maximize benefits from the participants and minimize risk for the participants. To understand this better, let us divide this sentence into two parts. First is maximize benefits from participants. This means that while interacting with our participants, we should bring them at ease and try to convince them that by participating in research, they are going to contribute towards the advancement of science and humanity. Also, they are having chance to do something interesting and thus take an active role in society. Such motivation from researcher will boost the confidence of participant and the participant will try their best to deliver effectively. Another part of sentence is minimize the risk for participants. What type of risk are we talking about? So many type of risks are involved in this, like physical risk, which includes physical discomfort, pain, injury, illness, diseases which are brought about by the methods and procedures of the research. Also risks like psychological risk, social economic risk, confidentiality risk, legal risks, etc. etc. So think about all these risks that are involved and then only proceed. Take only the calculated risk, that too minimize it first. Remember friends, by any case, we cannot put our participants in risk. Now, apart from the above discussed principles, there are some other ethical principles which are to be kept in mind while researching. What are they? As we can see in the slide, first one is honesty. Friends, honestly report data, results, methods, and procedures and publication status. Do not fabricate, falsify, or mispresent data. Another one is objectivity. Remember, strive to avoid bias in experimental design, data analysis, data interpretation, peer review, personnel decisions, expert testimony, and other aspects of research. Another basic principle is integrity. Keep your promises and agreement. Act with sincerity. Strive for consistency of thought and action. Next is carefulness. Avoid careless errors and negligence. Carefully and critically examine your own work and the work of your peers. Keep good records of research activities. Next principle is openness. Share data, results, ideas, tools and resources. Be open to criticism and new ideas. Another basic principle is respect for intellectual property. Honor patents, copyrights, and other forms of intellectual property. Do not use unpublished data, methods, or results without permission. Give credit where credit is due. Never plagiarize. Next principle is confidentiality. Protect confidential communications such as papers or grants submitted for publication, personnel records, trade on military secrets, and patient records also. Other principle is responsible publication. Publish in order to advance research and scholarship, not to advance just our own career. Avoid wasteful and duplicative publication. Our next principle is responsible mentoring. Do the responsible mentoring, help to educate, mentor, and advise students, promote their welfare, and allow them to make their own decisions. Another basic principle is respect for colleagues. Respect your colleagues and treat them fairly. Next one is social responsibility. Friends, strive to promote social good and prevent or mitigate social harms through research, public education, and advocacy. Next one is non-discrimination. Avoid discrimination against colleagues or students on the basis of sex, race, ethnicity, or other factors that are not related to the scientific competence and integrity. Maintain and improve your own professional competence and expertise through lifelong education and learning. Take steps to promote competence in science as a whole. Next one is legality. Know and obey relevant laws and institutional and governmental policies. Next one is animal care. Show proper respect and care for animals when using them in research. Do not conduct unnecessary or poorly designed animal experiments. Last one is human subjects protection. When conducting research on human subjects, minimize harms and maximize benefits. Respect human dignity, privacy, and autonomy. After our research work is complete, what should be our next step? It always should be to publish our thesis, because research without publication is useless. Either we publish our work, else it will get perish. We need to publish to exchange ideas for progress of science. And also, it judges our performance as researcher. जो भी काम हमने किया है, अगर हम उसको पब्लिश नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो वो सिर्फ हमारे तक सीमित होकर रह जाएगा. जबकि रिसर्च इज टू एक्सचेंज आइडियाज. जो भी नई जानकारियां हमको मिली हैं, वो जब तक हम लोगों की जानकारी में नहीं लाएंगे, तब तक हमारे रिसर्च की कोई वैल्यू नहीं. सो वी नीड टू पब्लिश आवर थीसिस. So, when we have decided to publish our research work, we need to do some preparations for that. We need to follow some precautions and some steps before getting into publication. So, what are the steps, or what are the precautions or preparations we have to do before getting into publication? First one is identify the appropriate target journal. Make sure to read the aims and scope of journals you are interested into. As certain as you can be that your paper falls within the journal scope. If your research falls outside of the aims and scope, look for a more suitable home for your paper, as submitting it there would be a wasted effort. Check each journal's recommended structure and reference style for articles on its website, typical found in the Guide for Authors, to ensure that your paper is not desk rejected. You might find it useful to look at Elsevier's Journal Finder tool when trying to identify a fit for your article. Now, the next step is shorten the length of your thesis. Journal articles are typically much shorter than theses. The precise word limit will normally be stated in the Guide for Authors. So be sure to use a tighter framework and a more compact style. This means treating your thesis as a separate new work, paraphrasing where needed to express the same idea in different ways. Also, selecting parts of your thesis to repurpose, not all of it, and focusing on the main points you want the reader to understand. Our next step is reformat the introduction as an abstract. Writing an abstract can be difficult. You already have a pretty good place to start, while abstracts in journal articles are usually much shorter, say 100 to 250 words than the average thesis introduction. The two have one thing in common. Both should contain all the key elements to command the reader's attention and encourage them to read further. Using your introduction and part of your discussion as a basis for your abstract can be a good starting point. Next step is modify the introduction. Your thesis may have more than one research question or hypothesis, which are not all relevant for your paper. Consider combining your research questions or focusing on a single one for the article. Unless otherwise suggested, try to keep the introduction short and to the point. It can also be very helpful to use previously published papers from the target journal as examples. Try to fit in with the usual form for articles in the journal. Next step is tighten the method section. Often, there is no need for an overly descriptive method section. While concerns surrounding reproducibility are becoming increasingly important, you may want to keep your method section succinct and certainly remember your audience. Your peers probably do not need every detail of tried and tested methods. A longer description of methods may be a requirement from your institute or funding body, and it is definitely warranted when innovative methods are deployed. But again, it's a good idea to use papers previously published in the target journal as examples. Another step is report main findings and results. Be sure to present all the findings that are relevant to your research questions in the results section before the discussion. If you conducted an exploratory analysis, be sure to provide at least a few concise statements on the findings. Next step is ensure discussion is clear and concise. A good starting point for a discussion section is an interpretation of your results. What is it that the reader will have learned from your research? Do not repeat your results in the discussion session. Instead, do the following things. Situate your findings in the literature. Discuss how your findings expand the perspective of the field. Briefly present ways in which future studies can build upon your work and address limitations in your study. Last step is limit number of references. Unlike your thesis, where you can cite those foundational yet potentially dated sources and anything else you may have learned from, journals do sometimes limit the number of citations. For this reason, it's important to make sure to choose the most relevant and recent citations, that the citations are formatted correctly. That's all for this video. Happy researching and publishing. Thanks for watching, friends. Stay home, stay safe. Jai Hind.